What is going on, everyone? Trust the Buzz here. If you're new to the channel, I make Charlotte Hornets content, so if that interests you, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. If you cannot tell by the thumbnail title of this video, in today's video, we're going to be talking about Kon Knueppel. I am going to do this on every potential prospect at 4. I might even go past 4 and talk about more prospects in that manner. So the whole point of this video is to tell you why X player will be a good fit for the Hornets. I am not saying they're a better fit than this guy, or better fit than that guy. I am just going to give you why they could work with I'm going to tell you why every single player could work with the Hornets. I'm also going to give some downsides, but I'm doing this for every prospect. So I don't want you to see this video and then obviously the others aren't uploaded yet and then you think that this is the guy I'm telling you to get. No, I am doing this for everybody. It's just this popped up today and I figured why not start with him, just because everybody was talking about it. So that's really that. Thank you for the disclaimer. I just wanted to give that out, put that out there, so that we're all on the same page. But once again, Kon Knueppel from Duke, 6'7". I actually don't know his weight, but he has a good solid size. And a lot of people are concerned because more and more we're seeing reports that Charlotte could be interested in him at 4. Now, this is my thing. One, take everything with a grain of salt. And I'm going to say that for every player. Take that with a grain of salt. You can't just assume just because you see it on Twitter that it's true, but we're just going to play the game here. So just keep that in mind. I've seen, just as much as I've seen people talk about Kon lately, I've seen people talk about Kamal Malawatch. I've seen people talk about VJ Etchicum. So like I've seen Ace Bailey. So there's other players. It's not just Kon, but once again, that's who we're talking about today. I think that the value for him being on the Charlotte Hornets and why they believe that he will be a good fit is because everything that's listed here. And I'm assuming this excerpt is from Jeremy Woo, but it says Knueppel's excellent perimeter shooting and measured style as a playmaker would be a strong addition for the Hornets, with his presence likely helpful to take pressure off LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. I think that is a very true statement. Kon Knueppel, I think a lot of people think that he is just a shooter, when if you watch the film, he's way more than that. There were times where he was just limited to being in a shooter role, but when you have Tyrese Proctor, you have Zion James, you have Cooper Flagg, of course. Like, when you have those guys, you don't necessarily need to be the guy. And we were shown time and time again where if he had to run the show, he could. And I think the biggest time was during the ACC tournament when Cooper Flagg was down, Kon Knueppel took over, and he definitely took over. He was a driving force into winning those games and for Duke to eventually go on to win the ACC championship. I think that when people see a guy who's built like him, they just think shooter. And I'm telling you, as I mentioned earlier, he does a little more than that. I think he's a good rebounder. He's good at taking contact at the rim. I've mentioned before, one thing he looks to do is that Jimmy Butler-esque, like, get to the rim. Like, it's very similar. I'm not saying that he's as effective as Jimmy Butler at getting to the rim, but you can tell that he watches Jimmy Butler because in the way and the pace he kind of attacks the rim. What I like about him as a shooter, we know that he can extend. We know that I really like that he is able to find his pocket. He knows where he's at on the court. He's already analyzing before he even gets the ball. And I think he does a really good job of doing that, like catch and read. He's not automatically catching and shoot. And if he does, it's because he's made that initial read of what he believed the defender is going to do. And I think that has helped him. People have watched that. And in reality, you just have a smart player. And I think that for a team like the Hornets, this could be beneficial because, as you know, I'm someone that I do believe that we need someone to kind of take the hope and embody it, because like right now it's in LaMelo, but he doesn't play, and whether that's front office decision or not, he doesn't play as often as you would like him to. There's other issues to that, but we're just talking about the key headline here. He does not play. Brandon Miller, I think everybody was very hype about him, but then obviously we didn't get to see him much with LaMelo his rookie year. Then his second year, we didn't see much of LaMelo with Brandon, just because Brandon, I think in the 27th game, I know it was like January, mid-January, he was out for the rest of the season with a wrist injury. So I think that for Hornets fans, you need someone to kind of be that new hope. And it doesn't feel as though Kon Knueppel is that, just because of his game isn't flashy, But for a team like the Hornets that's trying to be good, I think that it starts by getting good players. You have to get good players and just build on that. I think an argument can be made that you have LaMelo, you have Brandon, you need that third guy to kind of play off those two. And I think he does that exceptionally. I don't think that he needs the ball as much as Trey Johnson or Ace Bailey if we were to draft those two guys. He's someone that you will look up and he has 20 because he's playing with LaMelo, he's playing with Brandon. Brandon's a good connective passer. Kon's a good connective passer. I think that you also have enough ball handling going around that for one, I know other people have talked about it, we need LaMelo insurance. If you have so many ball handlers on your team that are able to play make in a way, and I think Miles falls under this, Trey Mann, of course, Nick Smith Jr., as he continues to develop and improve, you could do it by committee. It's like the running back position in football. And I think that's appeasing for the Hornets because that makes other players better. Wow, this guy is just not limited to this I'm backing up LaMelo role. He can actually be inserted into the lineup. He's a solid enough defender. He's a stocky guy. He plays defense like he knows his angles. He knows what his limitations are. Doesn't try to exceed past that. So I think you're going to see a lot more on his defensive tape than you would see of I would even say Ace Bailey and Trey Johnson, specifically Trey Johnson, but Ace Bailey, I think that he had the physicals to where on tape it's like this guy's a very solid defender, but when you watch, there are some times where you could tell he's ball watching and he just loses interest if he's not like actively in the play. With Kon, it's a little different. So yeah, you might not get the defensive upside that Ace Bailey can bring you. However, you do have someone that is a very solid defender and will continue to be a solid defender because he seems like a guy that once he gets to the league, he's going to be able to kind of morph into what is expected of an NBA wing. And I think that he really can do that. And that's offensively and defensively. We were speaking defensively there, but he does that offensively as well. If we just briefly look at his numbers, and I'm not everything's numbers. I think the film is a very important part of this. But you know how YouTube and copyright is. But anyway, if you look at his numbers, 14 points. He's giving you 4 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 1 steal. I mean, and then look at his shooting. Like, he's shooting 48% from the field and basically 41% from 3. A lot of these threes were catch and shoot. A lot of these threes were just him taking advantage of what the defense gave him. But I think we need that. We just need someone to hit. He's not going to hit the flashy threes that Trey Johnson does. And I think Trey Johnson is just like an electrifying scorer. But Kon is going to give you, when that ball goes up and he's wide open on a catch and shoot opportunity, you're very confident that it's going to go in. Trey, not so much. Like, it's not that he's not a good three-point shooter. Trey Johnson is a magnificent three-point shooter, but it's very volume, and he just hits, but he takes a lot of shots. So for every 3 shots he's missed, there's a couple of bad misses in there, whether they're wide open, whether it's a bad shot selection. With Kon, it's very much you know exactly what you're going to get around that perimeter. So I think that's very good for him and very good for us because of the fact that we have that reliable three-point shooter. If you look at our shooting last year, this is specifically for twos, and I did just kind of want to point this out. 2-point field goal percentage, and this is not even, and something's in my eye, and this is not even like counting at the rim or anything. This is just everything within inside the arc. We were the worst shooting team in the league, and because we barely shot 50%. I mean, you can round it up to 50%, but even then, the next closest is 51.5. So we have to work on that, and I think he helps with that as well. But I really pulled this up to show you our three-point percentage, and as we all know, we took a lot of threes. We did not make a lot of threes. We only shot 34%, and if you look at our roster, which I may not have that pulled up, I don't. But if you look at our roster, there aren't, like, outside of our main 6 guys, you look at Grant, you look at LaMelo, you look at Brandon, you look at Trey Mann, Nick Smith Jr., and I believe Josh Green. I think that's what I did. And Miles. I don't know if I said Miles. Either way, if you look at all those career three-point percentages, even with, because I didn't want to do last season. I think LaMelo shot worse than he normally shoots from 3 last year. I know Nick Smith Jr. did. That's something else. But anyway, Brandon Miller obviously didn't shoot as well. Miles Bridges didn't shoot as well. Anyway, for injured people specifically. So we're talking LaMelo and Brandon Miller mainly. Even if you brought them back shooting their career average, let's ignore last year because, like I said, I think they both shot worse than they normally do. So even if you use that career average, we still aren't a good three-point shooting team. even if they are shooting like they're 35, 36 normally, that would bump us up to like maybe somewhere around here, which at the rate we take threes and how much our system relies on 3-point shooting, it's not enough. Like I've said plenty of times on this channel, we have a lot of guys that can shoot threes. We don't have like 3-point shooters. We have guys that can shoot. We don't have shooters. And I think Kon, at the end of the day, at his worst, is a shooter. And that's really all you can ask for. I mean, yes, 4 is too high. If we want to get really technical about it, and like I said, I'll do this for everybody. If we want to get really technical about it, I still would not take him at 4. And it's not really, even though I feel as though he's not worthy of the 4th pick, just because if you look at what you know he can bring, I think it's there. I think that he's the ultimate competitor. I think he has like he is an elite shooter, and then he's good enough at everything else. And I think that he's going to continue to grow as a playmaker. He's going to be able to adjust as a defender. He may not be your Alex Caruso. He may not be your Lou Dort, your Jalen Williams, but he is going to be a serviceable defender. You got LaMelo, you got Brandon. I don't think LaMelo is as bad a defender as people think. He's taking defensive strides. I think it's just more so his decision making. He's always trying to make a play, takes him out. It is what it is. I've always said, if you're my offensive hub, I don't need you to be stout on defense, and I already know LaMelo is good enough to hold his own. When he really needs to lock in, we've seen it. It's just not consistent. Once again, offensive hub don't need you necessarily to be that consistent. Brandon Miller, I do have worries about as far as what he can be defensively. I think last year, there was times where we saw Brandon Miller of his rookie year, and then there was times where we saw like what just happens with the Hornets players, whether they're seen as great defenders or not, they get on the Hornets and then things get a little lackluster. That's how it was last year for him. We saw flashes, but ultimately it was a little disappointing for me. Kon, I think, is just, he's going to raise your floor, and I think that's in everything. Even though he may not be great at some things, I think in everything he's going to raise your floor. He's going to raise your floor defensive team. That gives you a guy that you know can shoot, but also you don't have to take him out when it comes to trying to play defensive possessions. Obviously, I'm not going to put him on the point of attack guard, like a small shifty guard, but I would put him on like bigger wings and things like that. He has the ability to do so. He has the footwork. He's just not naturally athletic, but everything else is there for him to be a solid defender in this league. So you're able to have that while being able to allow his 3-point shooting. And I think that's going to be the key. Also allowing him to be your tertiary, secondary playmaker in certain lineups. And then I think that if we build the bench up enough, I would really like to see Kon kind of run that offense, because once again, we saw him do it at Duke at times, especially later in the year. I would like to see him do it, but with a formidable bench unit. I think that he could really make some plays there. I think that he can really just run that offense, and I believe that will take some pressure off LaMelo. It will take some pressure off Trey Mann, I believe, who is not naturally a point guard. We saw that like that first year he was here, that first half season, he was very pass first. He was very timid in a way, but we saw that second year what Trey Mann really is, and as good of a playmaker he is, he's a 2-guard. He's just naturally a 2-guard. Nothing wrong with it. Exceptional 2-guard before the injury. So I think Kon, being able to play with Trey, being able to play with, let's just say, Josh Green, being able to play with these other guys, I think is going to open up a lot of things. And then having, him and Nurkic kind of do some work together in the pick and roll, you can kind of use that in 2 different ways between Nurkic and I think there's just a lot of fun things you can do. And he's the ultimate Swiss Army knife. I think normally we see Swiss Army knives kind of be molded into these like defensive more kind of guys, and then they'll obviously hit some shots on offense. I think he's a little bit of the reverse, where I think he can almost do anything offensively. Defensively is where you want to see more, but he's not bad at it at all. It's just that he's not naturally athletic, but he puts in the effort, he puts in the work. So I personally would like Kon. I just don't know if 4 is where I see that at. I think in this draft has a lot to do with it, just because typically you wouldn't see a guy like him go as high as 4. But for a team that's starving for talent like the Hornets, and then you look at the other guys where, can you really buy VJ shot? All right, and then the guy like after him, is Trey Johnson only a shooter? Because he doesn't show these other upsides the way Kon has, even though like I think if Trey's able to get his handling to, where it would be at his peak, he's much a better ball handler than Kon Knueppel would be, in my opinion. If Trey Johnson doesn't ever do that, and he's still this like run around, putting up big flamethrower shots all game, what does that really give you in the long run if he's not hitting? I at least feel as though Kon is able to do a little bit of everything. So 4 is just high, but I think the questions around, I think it's more about the questions around the people who would go in that spot than it is about Kon just being so good that he's 4. I think that with those guys, you have a lot to worry about, and you're trying to just be a good team. And what gives you the best chance of just starting out? Because I think all of those teams that are in this 4, 5, 6, I forget who's 7, the Hornets, Jazz, and Wizards, like those teams in those areas, I think they're all about ready to start to see their franchise turn around. I do believe all 3 of them, including us, which that's a conversation for another day, may be looking at that 2026 draft class and, maybe not saying, oh, we're going to get the number 1 pick, but there's a lot of talent at the top. So if you can stay kind of where you're at, I think it works out. I think a lot of teams are looking at that, and that's a different draft. So maybe if you're the Hornets, let's take this guy here. Like last year, we went for the upswing. This year, we're going for the guy that we know that can contribute right away, that can play the brand of basketball we want to play. We've had eyes on him all season because he went to Duke. And then next year, boom, we're set up to where really top 5, you can walk away with a franchise-altering player as of right now based on all film I've watched. So I don't know. I can see them doing it. I think 4 is just a little too high. I would prefer a trade back because I think that 4th pick will feel better if it came with Kon, in a trade, of course, if it came with Kon and a couple of additional assets. Because I think if you're the Hornets and you're willing to tell everybody you'll take Kon at 4, I think there will be a lot of teams trying to get 4. How far you want to go back after that, I don't know. I think if you're going to trade back, you need to be in a position where, if Kon doesn't fall for you, am I getting a player I want on my team? Because just because you trade back doesn't mean Kon will be there. So I think that it is important to understand that if the Hornets make it known, which they didn't make it known, a reporter made it, well, he didn't even make it known. He just said that there's traction there. I believe as though if that is the case, teams will want to move in that spot because they want Ace, they want VJ, they want Trey. That gives you, additional assets and Kon and this guy who can help your franchise day one. Because I feel that way about him. I'm pretty sure other teams feel that way about him. The only thing about him is that he doesn't have the highest possible star potential. And I believe I said it in last video where at this point I'm looking, if I'm Jeff Peterson, I'm not replacing LaMelo, I'm not replacing Brandon Miller, but whether it's my fault, front office fault, doesn't matter. And I'm going into this draft looking for their replacement, if that makes any sense. I'm looking for a guy who could be so good that, okay, now y'all are 2 and 3 options because we got this guy. That would kind of be my mentality. If you want to build on what you got, which I don't think that's a bad thing, like even shooting for the stars and trying to get a better player, it doesn't mean it will happen, but I think you got to take that approach. You won 19 games. Whether that's for, whether there's a reason for that or not, it doesn't matter. You won 19 games. But I think trading back for Kon, that goes into the direction of, because these are things that I personally would feel like I understand if the selection was Kon, whether we pick him at 4, trade it back. My understanding for him would be that we are keeping LaMelo and we're going to move forward with the roster that we have as far as at the top. And I think the top becomes LaMelo, Brandon, Kon. I'm thinking. Anybody else? Mark, I don't see Mark staying. I don't know how that gets done, but I just don't see him staying. Miles, I think that Miles will be a part of that as well. That will be the new core 4 moving forward. Now with Miles, will he technically be there? No, but I think that the result of possibly moving Miles would be in that position. So either way, I think your 3 is going to be LaMelo, Brandon, Kon, which I think is a very good 3 because they all can play off each other. They all kind of highlight different things in each other. I think that would be a cool little trio. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. I believe Kon is a guy that you can put in and have him literally do anything on this offense, whether you want him to run offense, whether you want him to spot up, whether you want him to just kind of play off LaMelo, play off Brandon, pick and roll with Mark, pick and roll with Nurkic, pick and pop with Nurkic. I think there's a lot of different things they can do. There's not one player on this team that I'm thinking of that he won't be able to have some efficiency with and won't be able to have some type of like on-court rapport with. And I think that goes a long way. I think that goes a long way because his skill set, while it may not be grand as far as VJ, Ace, and Trey, I believe it allows him to meet a lot of players where they are. And I think playing off that, I think will be a good thing. So let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. I know for a fact from previous comments and just reading Twitter and everything, not everybody's the highest on Kon because they're afraid that he is just a shooter, which I believe we do need shooting. But I personally believe he's much, much more than that. I can't say whether or not I'm really sold on him at 4. I definitely like the idea of drafting him. And as I've mentioned, Ace, Trey, VJ, Kon, I personally would not be upset at any of them. I think the only thing that would differentiate, my feelings towards those guys would be how we acquired them. I don't, sticking and picking at 4, I think it's all pretty even because I like them all. But then once you think about trading and what we got and things like that, I think that will kind of, make me change my mind a little bit. But overall, I think he's a good player. I don't see this. And I'll make a bold statement every video. I don't see a world where you want the Hornets to win but hate Knueppel and don't think that he can help. I don't see it. I do feel as though people may be overstating how much of a offensive engine he could be. I think he makes the right. He has like the mental, like the IQ and all of that. I just don't know if quite he has the ability to really do that. And that because it causes for a lot of usage. He's a very I wouldn't say low usage player, but high usage in the right moments. I don't think you can just, ride him to the end of the game to win you some games, especially not early. But I do feel like in those gaps where we're missing LaMelo, whether that's injury, whether that he's just out for, he's getting a rest on the bench. I think in those spurts, those minutes will become so much more efficient. And I think that's very important in thinking about who we draft next. Because whether you think LaMelo's gone or not, even to basic basketball duty, let's say LaMelo's on a lifetime contract, we know he's not going anywhere. Basic basketball duty, it is obvious that when LaMelo leaves the floor, the offense falls apart. And I think Kon extremely, extremely benefits those minutes. I think that he makes those minutes worthy of watching and makes those minutes worthy of, keeping us in the game. I really do believe that because it doesn't require him scoring. It just requires him making the right plays, making the right reads, and I believe he does that. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.